How crazy was Friday? Wow. Welcome to the 49ers Camelot Show. My name is Marc Adams. I'm your host, one of the writers at 49ers Web Zone, and we're going to talk about the crazy Friday that was, what we found out about Nick Bosa, what happened to Trey Lance. There was also some kicker news, and then there was a preseason game on top of all of that stuff. So let's kind of get into this timeline here, because the first thing that happened was that Ian Rappaport reported that Nick Bosa could miss the opener. According to Rappaport, Bosa knows what he wants and that he has decided that he's not really negotiating with the 49ers, that he's kind of just in a spot where he's going to wait for them to meet his expectations and what he wants. And so Rappaport said that Bosa could possibly miss the first game of the season. Obviously, we don't want that to happen. We want something to work out soon. I predicted that it would happen sometime next week once we got past this last preseason game. I thought that maybe we would see something happen next week. And so hopefully that still happens. But, we still have basically 2 weeks. 2 weeks tomorrow. Tomorrow's Sunday. So 2 weeks from tomorrow is when the NFL season starts. And so hopefully the 49ers and Nick Bosa will get this worked out because, look, if he misses games, first off, Pittsburgh is like 15-1 in their last 16 opening day games. So they don't lose very often in the first game of the season. They don't lose very often at home in the first game of the season. And so this game is going to be in Pittsburgh. Man, if Bosa can't play, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them to get pressure on the quarterback. We saw in preseason their quarterback was throwing touchdowns left and right. So, it's a game that we have to have Nick Bosa there. So that was the first news. Then we got news that the 49ers had traded Trey Lance to the Dallas Cowboys for a 2014 fourth-round pick. So remember yesterday, or I think it was a couple of days ago, when Diana Rossini said that the 49ers have been shopping Trey Lance all off season. John Lynch said that's not true. That's false. Who knows if that's happened, but they certainly have. I mean, we talked about this in my last podcast, that they did a 180, man, from the other day when Shanahan said, I'm going to make a decision the week of the Pittsburgh game. And then the very next day, news breaks that Shanahan has declared that Sam Darnold is QB2 and that Trey Lance is on the trading block, that he's being shopped. So, and we talked about how horribly they handled that whole thing. But here's the timeline. This came from Tracy Sandler. The timeline of the Trey Lance trade. On Wednesday, Trey Lance met with Shanahan and learned that Darnold was QB2. Lance takes time to think about it. Around 90 minutes later, asks for the opportunity to be traded. Then on Thursday, Lance came back to the team meetings. And then on Friday, he's traded to the Cowboys. So John Lynch said last night that when they told Trey Lance that he had been traded to the Cowboys, that he could see immediately some life and some joy on Trey's face. So good for him. I think it's bad for the 49ers, but not just because they're losing Trey Lance, but I just think that the way they handled it, especially the way Kyle Shanahan has handled this whole Trey Lance thing, has just been a mess. And so it's going to be interesting to see, because Dak Prescott's the starting quarterback in Dallas. Cooper Rush is the backup quarterback. And last year he came in when Prescott was hurt and actually won some games. So he kind of did a Brock Purdy kind of thing. So I would guess that Trey Lance is immediately going to be QB number 3 because he doesn't know their system. And so it's going to take time. He needs developing. He needs somebody to be patient with him. And if Dallas is patient with him, then he very well could end up taking Prescott's job down the road and becoming a really good quarterback. And if he does, if Trey Lance becomes a great quarterback for the Cowboys, and especially if they win a Super Bowl, I'm throat punching Joan and payroll or somebody. I'm punching somebody, because that's my worst nightmare, is the Cowboys getting Trey Lance, turning him into something great, and then winning Super Bowls with him. That would be horrible. And Shanahan and Lynch will be long gone by the time that happens. Because if it happens, nobody's going to want them, because that would just be terrible. So after that, right around game time, we find out that both kickers, Jake Moody and Zane Gonzalez, are hurt. So we knew that Jake Moody wasn't going to play. We thought that Zane Gonzalez was going to play, but then when the 49ers scored their first touchdown, out comes Mitch Wishnowsky, not to hold, but to actually kick. He didn't make it, by the way. And so then everybody's like, what is going on? This is crazy. The 49ers are a soap opera. Where is Zane Gonzalez? And then word immediately comes out that he's hurt too. So I don't know what's next. I mean, are they going to bring back Kyle Williams to start returning punts? This is just so crazy. But I do think that this would be a good opportunity to find Robbie Gould's phone number, if he'll even return your calls. So, but then after that, I mean, here's all this crazy news, and then they actually had a game. So that's what I want to get into here. So let's break down. Here's some observations. They lost 23-12 to the Los Angeles Chargers. So let me give you my observations. What jumped out to me? So let's get into it. Jordan Mason has put the ball on the ground too much during training camp and preseason. That could cost him the running back number 3 role. So he fumbled right at the goal line. I think he actually fumbled twice. One time they recovered, one time they lost the fumble, but not a good showing. He ran the ball well, but you can't keep putting the ball on the ground. Kyle Shanahan is not patient with running backs that fumble, and Bobby Turner's not patient with that. So that's something that Jordan Mason's going to have to clean up. And he didn't fumble at all last year, so I'm not sure why he's all of a sudden doing this. Brandon Ayuk, the next thing I wrote is Brandon Ayuk is going to have a huge year. He had a big play in that first quarter. I think it was the second drive. Big play. It got the 49ers down toward the goal line. So huge play by Brandon Ayuk, and that was pretty cool to see. What's up, James? James writes, Super Bowl or get rid of the front office. No more excuses. Someone needs to be held accountable for these terrible decisions. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. You know, a lot of the fans, when we came out of last season, a lot of fans were saying that Kyle Shanahan should be fired, but I didn't agree with that at all. And I remember I had when I first started this podcast in February, one of my very first guests was Oscar Aparicio from the Better Rivals podcast, and kind of the 49ers podcast OGs. And so I asked him, you know, he's talking good about Kyle Shanahan. And so I said, wait a minute, you don't think that Kyle Shanahan should be fired? Because a lot of people say that he should. And he was like, no, this is just ridiculous. No way should Kyle Shanahan be fired. But, you know, at this point, the way that they handled Trey Lance, I think that his seat is getting a little warm. It's not hot, but it has to be getting a little bit warm. Now, if Brock Purdy balls out and they win a lot of games and they do things like they did last year, nobody's even going to care. And if they win the Super Bowl, then he's going to have a lifetime contract. But yeah, if they don't play well, if they struggle this year, if they butcher this Bosa thing and then he comes in, ends up with a soft tissue injury and misses a lot of time, or if by chance, and this isn't going to happen, but if by chance he missed more than just one game, missed multiple games or missed some of the season, then that's going to, I mean, they're not going to live that down. So if they have a bad season and they've traded away Trey Lance after what they went and got him for, And if Brock Purdy's not the guy, then yeah, I think that Shanahan and Lynch are probably going to be looking for jobs sooner rather than later. James said, on another note, is there any strides towards getting Roger Craig into the Hall of Fame? Well, they announced they met on Tuesday, and then they announced on Wednesday this past week that Roger Craig, they announced their 3 finalists for the senior class, and Roger Craig was not one of them. So it's back to the drawing board. Those of us that have been fighting for him to get in, we're going to keep fighting because we believe that he should be in. Now, the good part is that from everything that we've heard from a couple of Hall of Famers who were in the room, Hall of Fame voters, I should say, the vote was really close, and Roger got into the final 6, which is great news because he was in the final 12, and then he got to the final 6. 3 were selected. And so you would think that, okay, now he's in the top 3, he should get in next year. Doesn't always work out that way. Just because you're close doesn't mean that you're automatically going to get in the next year. But according to the Hall of Fame voters that we got information from, this was not only really close, but there was a lot of really positive discussion. So even Matt Mayoko told me on Wednesday that he believes that Roger will get in next year, and he said that he's never said that before. So I think that it's moving that way positively. So okay, so next on the list, Ronnie Bell not only is going to make this team, he may end up making an impact this season. Kid just continues. He had a big punt return yesterday. I don't know that he was targeted too much in the passing game, but that's all right because he's made a big impact in the previous 2 games. So we'll see what happens. But I think that he's going to not only make the team, but I think that he's going to play a lot this season, and I think he's going to make a difference. Brock Purdy and the offense looked sharp. I definitely think that they're ready, and that was without Trent Williams. That was without Christian McCaffrey. So I think that that's a really positive thing that they really looked sharp. The 49ers special teams, on the other hand, they did not look sharp. So let's, last week I answered the question in a mailbag, or maybe that may have been earlier this week. Somebody asked, should we be concerned about the 49ers special teams? And I said, no, I think it's going to be fine. Jake Moody's going to have his issues as a rookie quarterback, but they're dealing with some injuries. And I think that once everybody comes back and the roster's cut down and we know who's doing what, I think that they'll be fine. I'm starting to get a little bit concerned just because now kickers are hurt. And speaking of that, like how do you get both kickers hurt? It's like they've become like last year's 49ers quarterbacks, that they're just all falling and nobody can stay healthy. It's just weird. But I think that they'll get the special teams figured out. But it is a little concerning that they're just not doing better than they are. James says, so their hope is for next year at least. For Roger Craig, yes, that's the hope. So he would, if he's chosen in August of 2024, then he will be enshrined in August of 2025. So that's kind of how that works. So is Bosa waiting for Jones to make a deal with the Chiefs? Is it about ego or money? That's a really good point. And I hadn't thought of that because Chris Jones is holding out for the Chiefs. Had somebody tell me, had a Chiefs fan reach out to me. I'm part of the PSF, Pro Sports Fans app. And if you haven't downloaded that, go download that and come join the 49ers chat room. Because we do live streams and all kinds of things in there. But I had a Chiefs fan come in there and say that he knows for a fact that Chris Jones is going to be reporting next week. Now, I don't know how he knows that. Maybe he's just talking and acting like he's some big shot. I'm not going to say that I know for a fact that Nick Bosa is reporting next week because I have no clue. I mean, I have no connections to that. And so there's just no way for me to know that. If that guy knows for a fact, if he really knows that Chris Jones is coming in next week, I hope that he's right, because if Chris Jones comes in and he signs his deal, then that could be what Bosa's waiting on, because Bosa wants to be the highest paid, and maybe Chris Jones is thinking he's going to be the highest paid defensive player of all time. So we'll see. Hopefully one of them will get this done, and then the other can jump in there as well. All right, moving on. The next thing I wrote down during the game is that Nick Zakelj is terrible. This guy, I really don't know if he's going to make the team. I hope that he's never called on to play, because he's not good. See, Purdy moved the ball well. Sam Darnold, however, came in and the offense immediately stalls. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. I mean, Darnold did play a little bit better later in the game, but yeah, that's I'm gonna support Brock Purdy, because I mean, yeah, obviously I'm gonna support Brock Purdy, but Sam Darnold as well, because if he's gonna be QB2 and he actually ends up playing, then I want them to win. I want them to do well, and I want that quarterback to do really well. So I hope that Sam Darnold is this reclamation project that does great things. I just need to see it, I guess. So Javon Kinlaw had a nice first half. Really pushed the pile a lot, like really broke down the interior of the offensive line and wreaked a little havoc in the first half. His second half didn't go as well. He just, sometimes he doesn't play with good technique, and when that happens, he gets pushed around a little. Let's see, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, he played well. He had a sack in the game. I think he had a sack maybe last week too. So he's flashed at times here in the preseason. Isaiah Oliver, man, I just think that he's not that good. I don't know what they're going to do there, because they really went out on a limb. They paid. He has guaranteed money coming his way. And so it's not like, if they cut him, it's going to cost them more to cut him than to keep him. So they're going to keep him. But I just, I don't know right now how much they trust Isaiah Oliver to play a good nickel corner spot. So James wrote, watching Kinlaw get double teamed to death was concerning last night. Or we're going to struggle against the run when we have some form of rotation on the field. Well, that's one of the things that I wrote down, was that the 49ers defense has struggled to stop the run the entire preseason. Now, it is preseason, and Javon Hargrave hasn't played much. Eric Armstead hasn't played much. Bosa's not been here, obviously. But you still want to see your backups doing something. I was really wanting to see how Kalia Davis did last night. But if anybody knows how he looked, jump in here and let me know, because I did not get a chance to see him. But I was hoping that Kalia Davis would play and would look good, because he's really the closest thing that they have to DJ Jones. And when they lost DJ Jones, they lost that plug in the middle, that person that shuts down the run. And so I really think that they need that kind of guy in there. And I'm hoping that Kalia Davis can become like that. But so far, he's not been, he either hasn't been healthy, and then when he has been in there in training camp, he hasn't played well, based on what I've heard. So now who has played well is Jalen Graham, the rookie linebacker from Purdue. I think that, man, he just makes plays. He hits those gaps. He can tackle. He hits. He brings a load with him. So let's just hope the 49ers don't trade him to the Cowboys in a few years, because I really like this kid. Chris Conley, he keeps making plays. I think it's going to be tough for him to make the team. He got hurt last night. I think I heard it was a concussion, but I'm not exactly sure. But it seems like whenever these 49ers quarterbacks in the preseason have needed to make a play, they've either gone to Ronnie Bell or they've gone to Chris Conley. And so last night, Conley made a great catch, beautiful throw from Sam Darnold down the right sideline, and Conley made a great catch. So I hope that he makes the team. I think that he still has a lot to prove and a lot to show. So hopefully he will make that. But I don't know. It's going to be hard for him. Thoughts on Drake Jackson? Should he take the majority of snaps opposite Bosa, or do you think? Or do you have someone else in mind? Well, Drake Jackson is the guy that I want to see win that spot, but he's been injured, and then when he's been in, he hasn't been great. He has flashes, like he has moments where he looks really good. He batted down a pass last night and almost intercepted it, and so he has those kinds of moments. But what they need from the opposite edge from Nick Bosa, he hasn't really shown that yet. Now, last season in the real games, he did show that at times. I think he had like 6 sacks in his first handful of games. I don't remember how many games that was, but then he tailed off at the end. And so he's come in a lot better shape. So I still have a lot of hope for him. I hope that he's the guy that they choose for that starting position. It might be that they choose like Cleveland Ferrell to start that. And I just learned how to say his name. I've always thought it was Cleveland Farrell, but I heard, who was it? I heard somebody that talked to him and they asked him, how do you say your last name? Because everybody says Farrell, and he said it's Furl, like referral. And so that was good to figure out how to actually say his name the right way. But I'm wondering if they're not going to start Cleveland Ferrell and then bring in Drake Jackson on obvious passing downs. They may do that. So my hope was that Drake Jackson would be ready and that he would be the guy, and that he would provide that kind of flash off the edge, like they need, so, but I don't know. I don't know that he's shown them yet that he can do that. So let's hope that he can. And if not, maybe it's Furl. Maybe it's Austin Bryant. I don't know. I thought that I had it figured out, but now I don't. So the next thing on here is both Mason and Ty Davis ran the ball well in this game. They both ran hard and picked up a lot of yards, and so that's great to see. They've got to stop with the fumbles, and they've got to do a better job in pass protection. There was the whiff last week when Ty Davis Price whiffed and let Brock Purdy get I think it was a sack, or he threw the ball away, but probably would have been a touchdown if Ty Davis Price picked up his blocker or his rusher, but didn't happen. So let's see. This game was brutal to watch once the starters were out, and really with all of the news that happened throughout the day, it was kind of hard to focus on the game itself. I'm thinking about Bosa. Is he going to miss week 1? And I'm thinking about Trey Lance. I feel bad for the kid, and I feel bad for the 49ers that they traded all these draft picks to get him, and then just had bad luck, with the injuries, and now Trey's going to have to go be a Cowboy. And I was hoping that he'd go somewhere in the AFC where we could root for him and still hope for the best, but I can't root for him if he's with the Cowboys. That's just not going to happen. So feel bad for that. But, and then the kicker situation, there was one 4th down right before halftime that it's like 4th and 3 or something like that, or 4th and 2. I don't remember what it was, but normally Shanahan would have kicked a field goal because they were in field goal range, but instead they lined up to go for it because there's no Wishnowski couldn't make a PAT. He's not going to make a long field goal. And so there was a penalty. I don't know, that maybe it was one of Nick Zakel's holding penalties. I think because he had a couple of them. He had at least 2 in the first half. And so then that moved them back farther. And I'm still thinking, hey, go for it. It's preseason. If you don't make it, big deal. it's not like, I mean, the Chargers weren't really going to have much time. They were going to have the ball near midfield. They really weren't going to have much time to do anything with it. So go for it. But Kyle instead chose to punt it. And so that kind of stunk. But that's Nick Zakelj ruining the day. And I can't remember if that was him, but I'm almost positive it was one of those holding calls. He had a couple of holding penalties, and both times in the first half, and both times I believe that they had picked up a first down and then it got called back. But you know, what are you going to do? That happens. So that's all that I have for today. James wrote, personally, I think we need Robbie back in the building before it costs us games. I don't care what it costs. Yeah, man, I am right with you at this point. Because they're thinking that Nick Moody Nick Moody. Who's Nick Moody? He used to play for the 49ers. I think he was a linebacker, maybe during the Harbaugh days. But Jake Moody, they're thinking that he's going to miss some time, maybe even miss a game or two at the beginning of the season. And with Zane Gonzalez, being injured as well, to me, I think that now is the time to get Robbie Gould in here and maybe just redshirt Moody and let him be the guy next season. That's what I would probably do at this point. But I just think that they've moved on from Robbie Gould. I don't think that they're going to call him. I wonder if he would even take that call, but the fact that he's still unemployed, I think that he probably would, and that they could apologize and do all that stuff. But who knows? I definitely agree with James. Call Robbie Gould and let him be the guy. Thanks, James. Appreciate it. He said, great show, man. Thanks for your time. Much love from the UK. Hey, thanks for watching from all the way in the UK. Appreciate that, and appreciate all of our 49ers fans in the UK, man. Man, y'all represent. You got a lot of great fans over there and some great content creators as well. And I've had at least one of them on the show in the past, but I know they do some really cool stuff over there. So that's all that I have. Make sure that you rate, review, and follow the show. And let me know if you have any questions. I'll be putting out a 49ers Web Zone mailbag on Monday, actually opening it up for questions. So if you have questions for the mailbag, jump in here or catch me on Twitter at 49ers Camelot. Be happy to talk 49ers with you. And go check out the PSF app. Pro Sports Fans is what it stands for. We're trying to build that up. It's going to be a really cool thing with some live streams and some live streaming during games and even during the week as well. So it's going to be pretty cool. So go check that out. PSF it's on Apple right now for your iPhone, your iPad. And I think that the Android part of it is going to be ready real soon. So go check that out.